We've been working for 2 hours. And what about you?
Right now, a woman named Akui is walking back to her camp in northern Tanzania. She dug roots for about 2 hours this morning. She's done for the day. Not taking a break. Done. Anthropologist Richard Lee spent 3 years studying the Juhwanzi people of the Kalahari in the 1960s. He timed how long they actually worked to feed themselves. The number came out to 2.4 hours per day. Not 2.4 hours of hunting plus gathering plus cooking plus everything else, 2.4 hours total, per person, per day. The rest was up to them. They talked, they made things, they told stories, they watched the horizon. They rested without guilt because rest wasn't a reward, it was the default. And before you write this off as one group, one climate, one lucky era, Lee's number kept showing up everywhere researchers looked. Across continents, across cultures, across thousands of years of different choices. Lee's numbers weren't a fluke specific to one group. The Hadza of Tanzania, about 3 hours. The Aceh of Paraguay, 3.5 hours of foraging on days they foraged. The Martu of Australia, similar patterns with long stretches of complete rest. Across 4 continents, across different climates, the pattern held. People who lived the way our ancestors lived for 300,000 years worked less than we work in a single weekday. Not because they were primitive, because they didn't need to work more. Anthropologist Marshall Solins called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society. He didn't mean they had wealth. He meant they had time. So what did they do with it? The question sounds simple. The answer is more interesting than you'd expect. The easy answer is, they rested, they socialized, they played. All of that is true. But there was something else happening, something that no competitor video has named directly. Something that makes the free time look less like vacation and more like investment. In a world without money, skill was the currency. The hunter who could read animal tracks at dusk never went hungry. Not because he hoarded food, but because the group fed him. His knowledge was the commodity. His reputation was the account. The woman who knew which plants cured fever became someone you wanted to keep close. She didn't need to negotiate. Her value was obvious to everyone watching. The person who could make a tool that lasted 3 seasons instead of 1 had something everyone needed. In a world without stores, the maker was the store. So the free time wasn't empty. It was practice. A young man chipping flint for 2 hours in the afternoon wasn't wasting time. He was building the reputation that would feed him when hunting failed. The cave paintings at Chauvet, 30,000 years old, weren't decoration. The flute carved from a vulture bone in the Swabian Jura, 40,000 years old, wasn't a hobby. These were demonstrations. This person can do something others cannot. In a world where reputation determined whether you ate, art was infrastructure. This is what the free time actually looked like from the inside. Not leisure emptied of purpose, time invested in becoming indispensable. And within that group, the labor wasn't divided the way you've been told. The dramatic man with the spear wasn't the one keeping people alive. He was important. He just wasn't the foundation. Most of the calories came from somewhere else, and someone else, entirely. Here's what the movies get wrong about who did the actual feeding. In hunter-gatherer societies, women provided between 50 and 80% of calories. Hunting is dramatic. Hunting fails more often than it succeeds. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe found that Hadza men returned empty-handed more than half the time. Women's gathering was steadier. Roots, berries, nuts, tubers, reliable. And the most productive gatherers in the camp weren't young women with young children. They were grandmothers. Older women, freed from nursing, often outproduced everyone else in the group. In camp after camp, across studies, the pattern repeated. Grandmothers fed the most people. Evolutionary anthropologists call this the grandmother hypothesis. The idea is that human longevity after menopause exists precisely because grandmothers kept grandchildren alive. Without grandmothers, mothers couldn't wean children early and have another. The group shrank. No other great ape has this pattern. Only us. The reason we live past reproductive age, unlike any other ape, may be grandmothers. The oldest woman in the camp wasn't a burden. She was the most valuable food producer in it. This matters not just biologically. It shaped the social order. In a camp where everyone sees everything, status came from what you contributed. And the rules that governed how contribution was acknowledged were deliberate and strange. The social fabric of camp life ran on specific rules, and one of the most important was this: no one was allowed to think too highly of themselves. It wasn't a suggestion, it was enforced through mockery. Richard Lee, who studied the Zhuhuanzi, decided to bring a gift at Christmas. He bought the largest ox he could find. He expected gratitude. What he got was mockery. The Zhu/Huanzi spent days complaining about the ox. Too skinny, too old, barely worth the fire. They walked around it, shaking their heads, gesturing dismissively. Lee was offended. He asked a local man named Tommaso what was happening. Tommaso explained, "When a man brings a big kill to camp, we always say it's worthless. We say he's a poor hunter. We say the meat is too tough." He continued, "This is not because we believe it. This is because we have to. If we praised him, he might think he's better than everyone else. A proud man will one day use a knife." Humility wasn't a virtue. It was a survival mechanism for the whole group. The bigger the kill, the harder they mocked. That was how the group kept its hunters from believing their own legend. Not cruelty, architecture. Social architecture that kept the group intact. When Lee finally slaughtered the ox, it turned out to be fat and delicious. No one mentioned it. Wiesner of the University of Utah recorded 174 conversations in Zhuhuanzi camps across 2 decades. She wanted to know what people actually talked about when they weren't hunting or gathering. During daylight, conversations were mostly practical. Where to forage, who had excess food, who needed help, logistics, resource management, the business of staying alive. But after the fire was lit, something shifted. 81% of nighttime conversation was stories, not recaps of the day. Stories about people who weren't there, events from the past, things that hadn't happened yet. Stories that had characters who made wrong choices and paid for them. Stories that named emotions. Stories that explored what someone should have done differently. Stories that let you practice moral reasoning without the cost of a real mistake. Wiesner called it the cathedral of the night, the place where the social rules of the group were rehearsed and transmitted. Not written down, not formalized. Transmitted through story, through the fire's warmth, through shared attention. You learned what the group valued not from lectures, but from watching which stories got told with admiration and which got told as warnings. It wasn't entertainment. It was the moral infrastructure of the group. The fire was the first school. When the fire died down, the conversations quieted.